Before I get into my breakfast, just a quick video on the mark of the beast. We're just going to look at one verse. First in the King James Bible, the Word of God. And we're all familiar with Revelation 13:16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. Okay, for those of us who believe every word of the Word of God, the King James Bible, when the mark comes, it will be in the right hand or in the forehead. Let's compare the Word of God to about 6 of the Vatican-approved Alexandrian perversions. And what do they say? Okay, first up we have the ESV. Who uses this one? John MacArthur. There's a lot of others. It's a very popular perversion, this ESV. Okay, Revelation 13:16. Slave. No, it should be bond, free and bond. See, the Alexandrians say they're slaves, but I say, because of the Word of God, I am a bond servant of Jesus Christ, not a slave of Jesus Christ. But anyways, John MacArthur thinks that the mark will be on the right hand or the forehead. Okay, on. Here we have the New Living Translation, the NLT. Who uses this one? Chuck Swindoll. He required everyone. No, he causeth all. And there's that slave again. On the right hand or on the forehead. So Chuck Swindoll will preach that the mark is going to be on, not in. Okay, the NIV. Who uses the NIV? Hank Hanegraaff comes to mind. He also forced everyone. No, nobody is going to be forced to take the mark. Just like when it comes to the aborted baby gene therapy liquid, nobody forced anybody to get it. Satan came along and causeth all to get it. Okay, so Hank Hanegraaff thinks that he is a slave and the mark will be on. That's the NIV. Okay, this is the NASB. Who comes to mind? Charles Stanley. And also, who else uses this? Paul Washer. So Charles Stanley and Paul Washer believe when the mark comes along, it's going to be on their right hand or on their forehead. That's what they believe. Here we have the exceedingly corrupt Living Bible. And this is rich. Here we go. Slave, again, to be tattooed. Oh, so they know it's going to be a tattoo with a certain mark on and on. And just look how it's worded here. And no one could get a job or even buy in any store without the permit. Sounds like a 13-year-old wrote this. The Living Bible. And it's kind of funny. This Bible was the official Bible of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, the Crusade edition. So they were handing these out at Billy Graham Crusades in the 70s. Says a lot for Billy Graham. Okay, who uses the New King James Version? John Hagee comes to mind, and I think Ray Comfort. Okay, well, there they are, slaves again. On the right hand or on their forehead. So even the New King James Version has it wrong. No surprise, this has been corrupted from cover to cover and must be utterly rejected. So, there you have it. Now, do you see the cover-up? Of course. According to the cult and sect of the Alexandrians, when the mark comes, it will be on, not in. And do you see the setup? See, Satan didn't have to come along and change the whole word. He just had to change a letter of a word to completely change doctrine here. And it's the Alexandrians who say, oh, all their versions, they don't change vital doctrine. Are you kidding? We just looked at one single verse and vital doctrine has been absolutely destroyed. The identity of the true mark has been covered up and the great setup is in place. The entire world, the entire globe, including the cult and sect of the Catholic Alexandrians, will receive the mark because they will say it is not the mark because it's in. The real mark when it comes, according to all our Bibles, the Pope and all these wealthy Alexandrian celebrity pastors all will say in unison and with one accord that the mark is going to be on. And they will say, who are you going to believe? All of us? Or those crazy, lunatic King James Bible believers? That's the setup. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not even suggesting that this might happen. But I just cannot ignore the scenario that's been set up here. Because the penalty for not taking the mark, which is execution, people will be desperate to look for a loophole, and the Catholic Alexandrians have created a doozy of a loophole. See, when Charles Stanley, together with MacArthur and the Pope, and who else, Rick Warren, all say that it's not the mark, save yourselves, because the mark, when it comes, will be on, and this is in. Save yourselves, they will say. Don't be deceived. All our Bibles and all of us believe it is not the real mark. It is a type or shadow of the mark to come. It is a dress rehearsal of the mark to come. Save yourselves. Don't be deceived. Do you see how Satan causeth all to take the mark here? By changing one letter of one word, he causeth all. He didn't force anybody. He's not going to force anybody. So the only people on the whole face of the whole planet that will know the true identity of the mark and will reject it when it comes are those whom God has sown his word into our hearts, and we believe what the word of God says, the King James Bible, and we're going to be a very tiny, tiny speck of a remnant, barely a blip on the radar, who will refuse the mark. Everybody, including the Catholic Alexandrians, will receive it. Anyways, I got to eat. Back to my breakfast. I did notice, though, the expiry date is April 26, 2001. You know, it's a little over, but I think it'll be just as good as day one.